Whole wheat chocolate chip cookies are just like the original. Tasty, but with the wholesomeness of hearty wheat flour and a bit less sugar. They are so delicious that your friends and family won't know they're healthier. So why should we make cookies with whole wheat flour? When eating sweets, if you can add in whole grains, you're already ahead of the game. It adds healthy fat, fiber, and a lot of nutrients not found in white flour. Because of this, you feel more satiated and are less likely to overindulge in too many of these wonderful treats. Here are the ingredients, but don't worry, as always, I'm including a link below that will give you detailed instructions and nutrition information. So let's start. Hi, I'm Sarah from jacksonsjob.com. I call myself the obsessive compulsive baker. I call myself that because I actually do have obsessive compulsive disorder. As you can see here, I'm over checking things. Ignore me. Let's get started. In a bowl, you want to put in 2 sticks or 1 cup or 226 grams of softened butter. When I say softened, you want it where you can squeeze it, but it's still a little bit pliable. You don't want it where it's like mushy. So what you'll do is you'll start creaming this, and when you get it creamed a little bit, you're going to put in your brown sugar and white sugars. As you can see here, it's really easy to push around. And right now I'm going to put in 1/2 cup of white sugar, which is 100 grams. And to this, I'm going to add in 1/2 cup or 113 grams of brown sugar in just a second. And these are to make the flatter cookies. If you want a puffier cookie, pull out your mixer and you'll want to really beat some air into the batter. But my friend adores the flat traditional cookies, which is basically undermixing your batter. And to this, I'm going to add in the salt ahead of time. I like to put in 1 teaspoon, 5 grams. Salt makes everything taste better. It balances out that sweetness. And then you're going to give this a really good stir. It might take a few moments, but don't worry. It's so worth it. And remember, this is easier than what I'm making it look like. I do have an injured shoulder, so I'm taking it a little slower than most people would. But that's why I want you to see how easy this recipe is. I'm making this by hand with a spoon with injuries. If I can do this, you can do this. I recommend if you want, you could invest in a cheap mixer and you could have these whipped up in no time, or we can just do it by hand like I'm doing it now. Now once you get it really nicely stirred, you're going to be putting in your eggs. We're going to use 2 eggs, which is 100 grams. Now you want to put these in one at a time. You want to give it a good stir. Don't worry if it splits a bit, and at first it's going to be hard to stir up. It's going to be kind of runny and watery and it'll just shove around. And then it will look a little curdled. That's okay because the more you stir, the better it will look. But you don't want to get it too cohesive again if you want the flat cookies. Now if you want the nice tall puffy cookies, this is where I really encourage you to go and get that mixer and just beat some air into it. As you saw, I just put in some vanilla, which was 1 teaspoon's worth or 5 milliliters, or I just eyeball it, just depending on how I feel for the day. I love vanilla, so I just kind of toss in probably about 2 teaspoons worth or 10 milliliters. And as you can see, it's starting to come together a lot better and it looks a lot less runny. And then it's time to put in the other egg and you start all over again. This takes a little bit of time, maybe about 30 seconds to a minute, depending on how good you are at mixing stuff and if you're not using a really cheap, flexible plastic spoon like I was doing. Next, I'm going to add in the 1 teaspoon of baking soda or 6 grams. Now, normally I would sift this into the flour, but I'm assuming a lot of people don't have a sifter, so I'm going to show you how I do it. Then I'm going to put in 2 1/4 cups of whole wheat flour, 338 grams, and start mixing that in a little bit at a time. And as you saw, I got a little bit over adventurous and made it a little bit of a mess. It's okay if you lose some of your flour. It doesn't have to be precise. This isn't like one of those cookies that really depend on every single gram of flour you're making. So just try your best not to make a mess like me. As I mentioned earlier, I really like using whole wheat flour in baked goods, especially sweets. It gives you a really good chance to give those picky eaters a wonderful way to start getting adapted to whole wheat flour. It has this nutty aftertaste That kind of reminds me of walnuts that have been toasted. It's actually very pleasant once you get used to eating whole wheat flour. Also, you get like a lot of nice nutrients like magnesium and vitamin B, which you don't get in the white flour because they remove all the good nutrition from it. As you can see, it's now a nice cohesive lump of cookie dough. And here we're going to add in 1.5 cups of chocolate chips, 200 grams. You can use any kind you like. You can use semi-sweet, you can use milk chocolate, or you can even use dark chocolate. I personally prefer the darker the better, but all I had on hand was milk chocolate and it's really good. Now if you use milk chocolate, you're going to have more sugar in it than if you use the 70% dark chocolate. I made this recipe to use semi-sweet chocolate, and that nutrition information is on jacksonsjob.com, so don't worry. I think what I like about chocolate chip cookies the most is the fact they are just so forgiving and let you use any kind of ingredients you want. If you'd like, you could put in some nuts here. Put about a cup, cup and a half, 2 cups, and see if you like it. I really enjoy any kind of nuts to go with wheat flour because the wheat flour has that nutty aftertaste and they really complement each other. So give it a try. At this point, if you wanted puffier cookies, you would rest your dough in the fridge for 30 minutes to overnight. The longer you rest it, the taller your cookies will be. However, we're wanting the flatter than pancake cookies, so we're going to put this right in the oven. You'll want to bake this at 375 or 190 C, anywhere from 10 to 12 minutes, depending on how well done you like your cookies. If you like them really chewy, you want to pull them out when they're just golden around the edges and the inside is still doughy. If you want them where they're crisp, you'll want to see that the cookie looks more done throughout. Whatever you do, don't bake these until they're completely golden brown all over, or they will be very crunchy, unless you like crunchy cookies. You then drop a heaping teaspoonful of batter onto a cookie sheet that's either ungreased or parchment lined. I like to use the parchment paper because it's easier to clean up, but you don't have to have it. And then, of course, you bake the cookies for 10 to 12 minutes. Here's what they look like. They're gorgeous, they're golden brown, and if you get them a little too close together, they may stick together and make little amoeba cookies. Don't worry about it. Just next time, space them a little further apart. Everybody does it. It happens. No big deal. They still taste great. And here you go. Whole wheat chocolate chip cookies. They're delicious. Great way to introduce whole grains into your diet. And look how delicious they look. Just like the originals. Everybody loves them, and you don't have to tell people it has whole grains in it. And that's the way you get people to start eating healthier. One meal at a time. I hope you enjoyed this. Go to jacksonsjob.com for more recipes. Please like and subscribe for more future videos to come. And be sure to have fun in the kitchen. Happy baking.